Hello and welcome to Catching Up with the Backs, episode number 13. This week, our special guest is Columbus Blue Jackets forward Riley Nash, who played for the Silverbacks in 2006-2007 and has suited up in over 500 NHL games to date. Riley, thank you very much for joining me. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me on. It should be fun.
Yes, this should definitely be fun. Really looking forward to it. Of course, we're going to talk about your Silverback season here. We'll talk about your time at Cornell as well in the NCAA, and then your NHL career thus far. I just want to start with, though, where are you joining from, and what have you been able to get up to the past few weeks?
Haven't been doing a whole lot lately. Just like in BC, the COVID thing going around here is put a lockdown or a clamp down on everything. Spending a lot of time at home. We're in Columbus, by the way. And just kind of hunkering down. My wife is about 7 months pregnant, so she's not moving too far either. She's kind of hunkered down. We're just kind of hanging and waiting to get any news on when our season's gonna possibly get going or when we need to be ready to go for camp.
Yeah, hopefully some news soon. But yeah, in the meantime, we'll take some time and we'll talk about your time with the Silverbacks. I want to start though with just before the Silverbacks. You grew up in Kamloops, is that correct? And what do you kind of remember about growing up in Kamloops?
Yeah, I grew up there, played all my minor hockey there up until I played for the Silverbacks. Still go back there in the summers. We have a place on Shoestop Lake. My parents are there, brother and two sisters, got a couple nieces and a nephew now. So a lot of family time when I go back. I've always enjoyed coming back to the Okanagan. The golf around there is fantastic. Having the lake in the summertime is obviously, I think, one of the best hidden secrets in the world. It's just so nice and then the weather, obviously, you can't really beat that in the summertime too. So, a lot of fond memories growing up in Kamloops and my minor hockey days.
Now, there's also a connection. Current head coach Tyler Shattuck, also a Kamloops kid, and you guys played together with the Thompson Blazers in Major Midget. Just want to know, back then, what are kind of your memories from that season, if you can share any good tidbits about a 15-year-old Tyler Shattuck?
Well, I will say he probably wasn't the first guy I was going to peg to be a head coach before he's even 30. So it shows he's grown up and come a long way in his maturity and just the way he kind of looks at the game now. I'm guessing that's changed. We had a great time playing together. He came in, he was a pretty high pick in the Bantam draft, but me and another teammate weren't going to kind of let us, it was kind of our team, so we weren't going to let him steal the limelight. So we had a really good time. We had a good team. I think we lost in the semifinals, unfortunately, to Kelowna, but we had a good year together.
Now, you played 2 seasons with the Thompson Blazers, but you were able to be an affiliate in both years. You played 1 game your first year, and then you played 5 playoff games, actually, your second year with Thompson. So I just want to talk about the experience of being an affiliate player and called up here, your first experience suiting up for the Silverbacks as an affiliate. You're young. What was that kind of experience like?
It's crazy. It's honestly almost like getting called up in your first NHL game, obviously on a different magnitude, but you're playing against bigger, stronger, faster, better players. And at that point, you obviously, the coaching staff and the organization has the belief that you can step in and play some minutes. And so you try and believe in yourself as much as possible that, I'm ready for this, but it's definitely a learning experience. The second year, I felt like when I played the playoff games, I was much more equipped physically. I was a lot bigger. I still wasn't very big, but I was bigger, and I was just more mature of a player. And so, it's fun because you go from playing in front of maybe 100, 150 people in minor hockey, or play a big game and you have a couple more people in the stands than that. But you go to junior hockey where people are paying to come watch you play, and just you have a couple thousand people in the stands, which changes things. So it's one of those experiences that I won't ever forget. And I really, really enjoyed it. I was able to play with my brother for a couple games, so it made it easy on my parents, only having to travel to one game instead of all over the place to watch us.
What was that like then, suiting up with your older brother? Because you would later play with him at Cornell, but with the Backs, you didn't really have that many games because of the age difference and him already going off to school. But the games that you did play with him, what was that like?
Yeah, it was funny. It's kind of a unique experience, especially at that time, because I was 2 years younger than him, and it's kind of like, oh, here's my little brother coming to play with us. I'll look after him, and I felt like a younger brother on that team. But then at Cornell, after being recruited and kind of paving my own way to get to Cornell, I felt like we were more peers. I wasn't quite the younger brother. Felt like we were just more teammates than anything. But I was thankful to have him on my side. It made things a lot easier meeting other people. I'd kind of chatted with them through him a couple times before playing with the Silverbacks, so it made things in the locker room a lot easier and made me a lot more comfortable.
Now, so you've affiliated at this point in your career, and then to decide to play, to go the junior A route and commit to the Silverbacks, because you were a Western League pick. Was the Western League ever a pull for you, or was it always kind of you wanted to play a full season with the Silverbacks?
I grew up dreaming of playing in the WHL, so it was kind of a route that I definitely didn't foresee happening. And quite honestly, my eyes weren't open to it growing up. You don't hear, or back in the day, you didn't really hear a whole lot about NC2A guys. We didn't really have anyone local that had gone that road. And so, without Twitter or social media and the internet, it wasn't a big thing. It was kind of hard to get information other than word of mouth. So my first experience was when my brother went to Salmon Arm and started getting recruited, started talking to colleges. That's when I started to think about, this might possibly be an option for me as well. I wasn't a huge guy, so developmentally wise, I didn't want to rush into a situation where I was going to be overwhelmed and underperform. I wanted to kind of take it methodically, step by step, and make sure I'm ready to take on the next challenge when it came my way. So going to junior A seemed like a good logical step when I was 17, and continue my development and then make a decision after that season. And after being recruited, I decided that college would be the way for me.
Can you try to map out for us how your season here went? Were there ups and downs? Your stats are pretty impressive from that season, but what do you remember from as the season went on, how things went?
Yeah, it wasn't easy. It wasn't I know I had decent stats there, but I remember the first half of the year, before Christmas, I was trying to get my footing on, what kind of player I'd be in that league, who I was, what worked and what didn't. You're playing against bigger guys, better players. You can't get away with the same little things that you can do in minor hockey. So just trying to figure out and get my footings in the league. And then the second half, I remember I had a pretty good second half, and that kind of vaulted me into being drafted high. And it kind of was one of the stepping stones, where that second half where I had a strong showing was like, okay, maybe I can do this and should really focus in and take this quite seriously.
We'll get into a few more kind of storylines from that season. The team scored a lot of goals, but
probably gave up quite a few too.
Yeah, that's true. Everyone in the league back then, I think it's changed a lot in whatever 13 years or so. But I want to talk about your billets first before we get into some of the stats. Your billets were Fran and Barb Hagel, the same billets as your brother. So can you just talk about how they helped you and maybe your brother too with the transition?
Oh, they were great. They were basically my second parents. I just enjoyed every minute I spent with them. They were some of the best billets I think any kid that's moving away for the first time could ever dream of having. Barb was a fantastic cook. She took care of me like I was the only person on the planet, so I had all my every need taken care of before I even asked. So we still have a pretty good relationship. We see them, a couple times every time we're back. In the summertime, we'll always go out for lunch or dinner a couple times, and then their daughter, I think Jody, still billets for you guys. So, and she has a daughter that's we become decently close with too, so we'll always see them. So it's you hear a lot of stories about billets throughout the hockey world, and I don't think I could have picked a better house than theirs.
Awesome. Let's get back a little bit to the storylines from that season. You guys had 36 wins. Again, though, the 281 goals as a team, it led the league. That kind of does stand out. Well, can you talk about some of the players on that team that allowed you guys to thrive offensively? Was it a style thing? Was it a personnel thing? How did you score so many goals?
I don't know. I wish I knew, because I'd score more now. No, we just had, I think we had a really talented offensive group. We had a couple guys from the States, Brian Volpe, Tony Mosey, Ben Winnett was drafted to Toronto that year. We had a good backhand. I think we had quite a few Division I scholarships come off that team. So, it's just, I think the coaches at that time, Ty Davidson was running things. Gary was more front office. He came onto the bench a little bit. Just kind of the system we ran, it seemed like everything kind of clicked offensively for us, and we had a lot of fun scoring a lot of goals that year.
Do you remember any of your line mates? Like, was there a line that maybe that second half when you started to take off, you ended up with 36 goals, 82 points. Do you remember who any of your line mates were that season at the end, maybe?
I think I was playing with Tony Mosey. I know him and I were toe-to-toe for the points race on the team until like the very last game or two. And so it was always fun, good banter going back and forth. Yeah, we kind of shuffled the deck. I kind of played with everybody. So we had a lot of strong players on that team. That, we were young. We had I was 17, Winnett was 17, I think Mosey, a lot of other guys were 18. And then we had kind of a sprinkling of 20-year-olds, but not many. And so I think that was kind of our demise in the playoffs. We ran into an older, bigger, physically imposing team. But, talent-wise, I think that team could go toe-to-toe with any team in the league that year.
Let's talk. You brought up the playoffs. The first round series, Game 7 at home, and you guys prevail against Prince George. What do you remember? That's got to be pretty cool to play a Game 7 here and come out on top. What do you remember about that series?
I remember it was a really back and forth series where I think we were more talented, but they played really hard. It was just one of those series, even that's the first year that being in junior, you're really traveling. And so traveling up to Prince George, which is like an 8-hour trip, that starts to wear on you as well. And so I know we didn't want to play 7 games, especially traveling that far, but you gotta do what you gotta do to get it done. And cool experience playing Game 7. Those don't come by all that often. So you really gotta relish those moments and just enjoy it.
You mentioned Ben Winnett, like you, was drafted to the NHL that season, but before that, you guys represented Canada at the World Junior A Challenge. In fact, it looks like it was the first World Junior A Challenge playing for Canada, so that's got to be pretty cool.
Dating us.
Yeah, sorry to bring that up. But can you just talk about, you guys ended up winning gold, so what that experience was like? Yeah,
it was cool. I know Ben was chosen to that team earlier on, and I think a late addition, so I think it was like the 20th or something of December, and the tournament might have been starting a week later. Or it was something where I had to decide, or we had another guy that got hurt, and I was like the spare guy, and they called me, and I'm like, absolutely, I'll go. And so I didn't really have any expectations at that point, being the kind of like a fill-in guy. But once I got there and I was playing with the guys that I knew I could play with, it it was just it was a lot of fun. There was a guy from Kamloops, Casey Piero's Bchl, who was on the team. So we used to play together every year growing up. So it was really fun to reconnect with him and be on the same team again. And also having, went out there and a couple other guys that I knew. So it made it a lot easier, a lot more comfortable, and just a really cool experience overall, being able to, anytime you can wear the red and white, it's so cool. And it honestly gives you nerves and tingles every time. But yeah, fortunately we were able to come out on top and win the inaugural, and I think we beat Canada East in the final, so it was good bragging rights for the West.
Do you think that helped? You mentioned about the second half, you kind of you're playing better. Did this help confidence wise with then in the second half? Definitely,
yeah. It was kind of a similar scenario, a microcosm of my season, where I kind of started out slow there, just trying to get my footing, and then as the tournament went on, started playing better and better. And so yeah, I definitely took the positives out of that, took the experience, and just tried to really let that catapult me into having a strong second half.
And that strong second half catapulted you as well to the draft, the NHL draft, selected in the first round by the Edmonton Oilers, 21st overall. Can you just talk about, I guess, what was your draft day experience like? Where did you think you might go heading in? What was it kind of like to be you on that draft day?
It was pretty crazy. I was down there with my dad for about 5 days leading up to the draft, doing some interviews, doing basically whatever teams wanted. And I didn't really have a ton of expectations, just because the whole year had been such a whirlwind. My agent was kind of telling me that I'd be, second, I could be a third, second, even late first round pick. So my mom wasn't even down there, and my agent was like, she should probably get her down here just in case something happens. And so thankfully we did, and she flew in, I think it was the day before. And we were sitting about 10 rows up from the Edmonton table, and when they pulled out the jersey, we were sitting with the Tourists. We have the same agent. His mom, I think, saw the jersey and was like, oh, Riley. And so I thought I knew. I didn't want to be super disappointed if it wasn't me, but she kind of tipped me off that it might be me before it was even announced. So pretty cool experience. That's another one of those like first game in the NHL experience where it's everything. You kind of black out and just try and not act like a fool and look calm and cool and collected on the inside.
Now, looking back on that season with the Silverbacks, what kind of the community of Salmon Arm here, what stands out from that season playing here? And I know you come back and you've played in some Pro-Am games as well. I'll get to that in a little bit. But when you were a player, what kind of stands out that season about the support from the community?
It's awesome. The season ticket holders were great. We had a lot of sellouts that year. I spend, a little bit of time every summer there still, visiting my old billets. I have a bunch of friends that are from there. I just think it's the perfect junior A hockey town. I'm sure a lot of other towns will claim they are, but I just think it's the perfect spot. You have the lake there. A lot of stuff going on outside of hockey too, so it's a good balance between life and then your hockey world.
Now, coming back for Pro-Am games, and I know you have friends, like you said, people to visit, but you've come back for a few of them. Why do you enjoy those? Because not everyone does come back. So why, for you, is it important to come back and play?
Yeah, it's just nice to give back. It's they're fun. It used to be Ryan Smith versus whoever, and so I always enjoyed coming and try and take off the heavyweight guy. Everybody was super excited to see him and have him there, and it was awesome to have him because he's so good. He was so great with everybody. But having that little bit of rivalry in the game where when it comes down to the third period, the intensity turns up a little bit. It was always fun to battle with him and all the other guys that came out. I just think it's a great way to give back to the community after all that they've done for me, as well as a lot of other players that have come through there. It's just an easy gesture for me to come back, and if people enjoy it, then why not?
Now, after your season here and after getting drafted, you did head to the NCAA. Before I get there, I just want to know how your season here, how did it prepare you for that next level, for the NCAA? Why is the Bchl and why is Salmon Arm? Why was it a good preparation for you?
Well, it's a great junior A league. You get a lot of talented players. I think they do a really good job of recruiting guys, not just from BC, but from other provinces or in the U.S. And then they do a really good job of bringing in some overage or guys that aren't quite cutting it in the WHL and need a place to play, and they come back to the junior A league. So you get a real good test every night, depending on regardless of what team you're playing. There's a lot of good, healthy competition in the league, and it seems like every year there's at least a couple guys getting drafted in the upper first, second, third round. So I think it's just a great testament to the league that it is and the players that are in it. And so I thought, if I could be somewhat successful in this league, then I think I'm ready to take the next step, and I think it's time for a new challenge. So that was pretty much my thinking.
And so off to Cornell you went. Why was that school? I guess, how did the scholarship happen? When did it happen? And why was Cornell the right fit?
Yeah, I talked to them early on just because my brother had committed to them the year prior and was off there. It just, I don't know, it's just a combination of the schooling, the hockey program they'd built there, the coaching staff. Having my brother there definitely helped. Just kind of everything that I encompassed or thought would be what my experience wanted, what I wanted my experience to be at college. So it was awesome. It was a great 3 years, and I don't have a day where I regret going there.
Let's just quickly talk about your first season there. You were ECAC Rookie of the Year, almost a point per game, 32 points in 36 games. Just want to know how you found the transition. So we know obviously how the BCHL helped and how it did prepare you, but what was that transition like for you? How did you find it?
It's funny, I think just turned 18, and you show up there, and there's like 24-year-olds on our team, and so you really are. That was the first, okay, we're playing against the men now. And you battle against them in practice, and you do your best, and you figure out what works, what doesn't, how I need to get better in certain areas, where I'm a little bit deficient, where I'm okay, and you just kind of figure out your own game and where you're at in that pecking order. So I've never been on the bigger side at any age, and so I've kind of adapted my game to that. So it wasn't brutal, but it was definitely eye-opening when you start playing against guys that have been, they work out hard there. So when you play against guys that are 25 and worked out for 4 years at college, it's an eye-opening experience. So it was tough, but it's the same thing. Once you kind of get your footing and figure out what works, what doesn't, what you're good at, and what you need to improve on, you start to incrementally get better. And by the end of the year, I was pretty comfortable.
Now, looking at the team record, it looks like the team kind of got better each year you were there. 12-9-1, then 13-6-3, 14-5-3. The record doesn't always tell the whole story, but I just want to know, year over year, leading into your third year there, did you see that improvement for year over year?
Yeah, my freshman year, we were okay. We made it to, I think, the Final Four, the ECAC championships. I think we lost to, maybe Harvard, but we really struggled against. Then the second year, we actually had a really good team. We made it to the Elite Eight in the NCAA tournament. That was, I think we climbed to number 2 in the rankings that year. So we had a really strong team that year. We felt as the program that we were right on the cusp of doing something special, and that final year we were able to get over the hump. It was a fun process for us each and every year to see us getting closer and closer and finally win our league championship that final year.
Yeah, so what was it like then to win an ECAC championship but also do it with your brother on the same team? What was that like?
Yeah, it was really cool. my parents were down there, sisters. So, anytime you can win your league championship, I think it's, something that shouldn't be taken lightly. You've accomplished, it just shows that you've accomplished a lot that year. You've grown as a team, and all the hard work that you put in is finally paying off. So it was really fun to be able to share that with them and our family, because they had traveled a lot of miles by that point and come and watch us quite a few times. So it was just fun to have everybody there to be able to celebrate with.
Now, after your 3 seasons there, can you just take me through the timeline of how it worked? You turned pro. You had your rights traded from Edmonton to Carolina, eventually signed with the Hurricanes. How did that, what kind of factors went into deciding you want to turn pro, and then deciding maybe Edmonton wasn't the best place, and then deciding to sign with Carolina?
You're causing turmoil now. It was just kind of internal discussions with myself, and just the way things had been going for Edmonton and developing players at that point. Kind of the people that were ahead of me developmentally wise, and the positions they were. It was really the last decision I could make and have my career kind of in my hands. It was the last time I could impose my power on it. So we decided that, going to a different organization and having a better opportunity at cracking that lineup would be in the best of my interest. And so I was traded to Carolina that summer, and we had some good discussions with them, and ended up coming to the conclusion that, I'd probably be better off developing in the American League, or if I was able to crack the squad, than in the NHL. And so made that decision and went to the American League for 2 years.
I hope I'm not actually causing any turmoil. Just wanted to know.
It's all good.
Why Carolina, you ended up signing there. Can your first year of pro, you mentioned going to the American League, 32 points in your first full season at the AHL level. So you've played against men in the NCAA, but this is pro hockey, another level. What was that transition like, going from the NCAA to playing with Charlotte? Yeah,
that was probably the hardest transition for me at any stage in my career, and it was definitely humbling, to say the least. I had always been able to kind of control the game and play it at my own pace and kind of do my own thing, and it worked out. And then going to that pace, and those, everybody's really good at that stage. It was pretty eye-opening, and so I had to kind of tweak my game and figure out what I was good at. You get to that level, and to be a top 6 player in the NHL, you have to be extremely talented. You got to put up points. You got to be gifted. You got to be skilled. And so it's kind of one of those things where I got to figure out what's my advantage, what can I hang my hat on each and every night to be like, this is why I deserve to be here in the American League or here in the NHL. And so it took me a little while, but I was able to kind of figure it out throughout the course of that first season. Towards the end of it, I felt like I was finding my game. And throughout the playoffs, I thought I played fairly well. So it was good. It was a good stepping stone to that second season in the American League, where I thought I played definitely better, and I had grown a lot as a player, and was finally closer to being ready to the NHL level. You talk about tweaking your game and kind of finding what will allow you to kind of get to that next level. What was it with your game that you were able to really work on and then eventually make your NHL debut? Yeah, well, growing up, I'd always been like points, offensive forward, skill. Let's not think about anything else other than going and scoring and helping other people score. And at that point, I kind of realized that that's probably not going to be my bread and butter anymore. So, a lot more focus on the defensive end, defensive details, little things, penalty killing, face-offs, just being someone that can be relied on every time they're on the ice. You're not worried that, I'm not going to know the system or be in the wrong spot or, causing a bunch of defensive errors. So tried to really focus in on that side of the puck, and I'd shown that I could produce some offense and just let my creativity and everything flow. And so I wasn't too worried about the offensive end. It was more just being as responsible as possible in the defensive zone.
So your NHL debut to December 2011 against, I guess at the time, the Phoenix Coyotes, the Coyotes. What do you remember about your NHL debut?
It was crazy. I was supposed to be going on my Christmas break in the AHL, and I got a call after our last game that I was getting called up. I actually wasn't playing great at that point in the AHL. I was just kind of having in a little bit of a rut. I thought the coach was calling me in to send me down. So that was a nice surprise. It was a nice Christmas present. Yeah, it was cool. It was awesome. We played against Phoenix, like you mentioned, and a guy that I trained with in Kamloops a lot ever since I've been like 13 was Shane Doan, and so my first game was against him. And he kind of gave me a tap on the shin pads in warm-up. And it was just like one of those full circle moments. You know, I've been trying to replicate what I do in the off season, trying to chase this guy down in every workout and everything I do and try and be like him. And now here I'm on the same ice surface as him, playing against him. So it was pretty surreal, but also really cool at the same time to be able to experience that.
The next game, you got your first point against the Ottawa Senators. I was going back and looking at video that I was able to find.
It was beautiful.
It almost looked like it was your goal.
Yeah, I think I got like a second assist on a cycle or something. That guy threw it on net. It bounced off like a bunch of different things and ended up going in. Yeah, the people thought it was my goal, but I didn't. I hadn't felt it go off me, and I wasn't quite prepared to have my first NHL goal be a lucky bounce off my shin pad.
Yeah. So let's get to your official first NHL goal for real. So the next season you were called up in March 2nd against the Florida Panthers. Talk me through this first NHL goal for you. What was going through your mind when it happened?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was kind of like a breakout. I was swinging as the centerman. I think our guy beat the guy up the wall, so it was a 2-on-1. I was on my one-timer side. The guy slid it over to me. I was able to fire it home, and then I caught an edge and went flying into the boards. Knocked the wind out of me, so I didn't really have the best celebration, and I was in my head thinking, just make it to the bench and get off the ice. Make sure you're okay and don't look like a fool after your first goal, and you can't even play the rest of the game. So fortunately I wasn't hurt, but yeah, that was a special night. I think I had goal and 2 assists that night, and I was like, that was kind of the first surreal moment for me being in the league. It's like, wow, that was just incredible. You know, just having such a great game on such a big stage. So it was a really cool experience.
So now it's been several years for you at the highest level, a few different teams. Can you just talk about Carolina to Boston to now Columbus? Maybe just talk a little bit about each stop and what you've enjoyed most with each NHL team.
Yeah, so Carolina was kind of like a growing up phase, becoming the player I am now, kind of figuring out who I'm going to be, what's going to be my staple to keep me in the NHL, and what I can do. Then off to Boston, where we had some pretty good teams, 2 years of the playoffs, and I had an okay first year. At the end of the year, I was playing a lot more minutes, and important minutes, and played fairly well. And so that was kind of a point where I'm like, hey, let's kind of kick this up a little bit and see what I can do the next year. The coach really believed in me, so that definitely helped. And the second year had a really great year. We had some injuries that obviously opened up holes in our lineup that we needed other guys to step up and kind of fill. And so I played with some fantastic players that made me look a lot better than I am. So I was really fortunate for that. And, we made the playoffs both years, which was great. Some of my favorite memories are from that, playing Toronto. Almost letting it slide and just breaking their hearts again. And then, coming over here and trying to build on what I'd done in Boston and what the franchise here had been building for, 4, 5, 6 years before I got here, where they were making the playoffs on a consistent basis, but yet to win a playoff series. And obviously in year one, we knock off Tampa in the first round in pretty epic fashion. So that was one of the cooler moments of my career for sure, just being in the building, being at home, how crazy the atmosphere was in those games 3 and 4 was something I'll definitely never forget. It was pretty cool. And then obviously last year, just trying to, as a team, we had a lot of injuries throughout the course of the year, and so just trying to piece together a regular season. We were right on the cusp for a playoff spot before the shutdown, and then coming back and end up matching up with Toronto, who's obviously one of the most talked about teams in the league, and being able to beat them in 5 games after almost collapsing in game 4 and 5. So showed a lot of resilience, and I was really proud of the guys, the way we were able to fight there. And obviously came up a little short to Tampa this year. One of them, really good team. So I thought we were right there with them. We played them hard, but it's been fun the last couple of years being able to play that playoff hockey.
Quickly, I do want to go back to that sweep of the Lightning. Just because
I'll talk all day about
that. Yeah, it was pretty cool, obviously, for you guys to be able to do that. I want to know, is there anything you can share kind of behind the scenes, or any cool stories, or anything about that series that you're allowed to?
Well, I remember in the regular season we played them 3 times, and I think the total score was like 18-4 for them. And so we were kind of like, what do we have to lose? Let's just throw everything at them. Let's push them in ways that, who knows how they were so successful during the regular season. They kind of had their way with everybody. Let's see what we can do, push them in ways that they might be uncomfortable with. And in game 1 we were down 3-0 after the first period, and we're like, oh boy, this is. But the funny thing was, in our room over the course of that year and that first period into the second period, we had played a lot of good hockey against us. It just seemed like they would capitalize on every single opportunity we gave them. We'd turn it over for a 2-on-1 and boom, it'd be in the back of the net. And our goalies were playing great too. It wasn't their fault at all. And so, let's just try and figure out a way to limit those and see what if they can do this the hard way, the gritty way. And obviously we came back in game 1 down 3-0. I think we won 4-3 in regulation. And then at that point you're kind of like, okay, was that fluke, or can we do it again? And we came out hard in game 2, got up on them, and we didn't look back after that. Game 3, their guys got a lot more frustrated and started losing their composure, and we were able to just kind of keep the pedal down, and we didn't really have a game where we gave up much of the momentum. They would score, especially at home, they would score, and the crowd would be quiet for like 5 seconds and then give us a standing ovation to get us going again. And I'm like, this doesn't ever happen. It's like they want this just as bad as we do. So it was such a cool experience. The last game when we were up, the last 5 minutes, it was pretty much like standing ovation the entire time. They were so jacked up. So it was nice to see, after we won that series, all the guys that had been there for 5-6 years that hadn't won a playoff game, they hadn't won one in franchise history, to see all that hard work for the fans and everybody, see that all kind of come, falling down against one of the best teams ever in the regular season. So it was just kind of a really, really cool moment for a lot of people.
Yeah, very cool to be a part of. Now, let's talk about the bubble experience a little bit. You mentioned taking down Toronto. You were in the bubble in Toronto. Let's talk a little bit about off the ice, about what that experience was maybe like, because I imagine it wasn't easy. And you were there for an extended period because you won a series and then played another one. So what do you remember? What are you going to remember most from?
It was definitely a unique experience. It reminded me of being a kid again and going to a 4-day hockey tournament, and you go to the rink, then you go back to the hotel, and you don't go anywhere else. And so for us, we could walk to the rink, which was nice, but we were in downtown Toronto, so there wasn't a whole lot of outdoor space for us. So it was a lot of time either at the rink or just kind of chilling in your hotel room with other guys, whatever you wanted to do. I read a little bit. I got back into Xbox, Call of Duty, so that killed a lot of time. There was probably, out of the 30 guys we had there, probably 25 of them had their Xbox or PlayStation there, so we had a pretty good setup going for that. But yeah, it was like, honestly, like a minor hockey, just an extended minor hockey tournament. You go, you play, you eat, you hang out at the hotel, and then you go back to the rink and you play again. So they did a really good job of keeping us safe, which was great. But you know, for players that didn't have their kids, couldn't see their wives, you know, it was a little bit tougher. You
talked a little bit off the top about you don't know when you're going to start next. Is there anything else that you can talk about preparations for next season, and kind of just sitting and waiting around to hear until you're allowed to?
Yeah, we have in Columbus here, we have probably 14 guys or so that are back now. So we're skating together. Some of us are working out. They have different policies just with the COVID for how many can work out at one time. So we're getting back into the swing of things now with you know, about half the guys back and skating together. And so, you know, we'll skate 4 times a week and be ready to go whenever we get the call. So hopefully in the next week or two, they can kind of set out some sort of game plan, a map for us that will give us a better understanding of what's going to happen. But we'll be ready to go when we get the nod again.
Let's get into our final segment, which is fan questions.
Twitter was blowing up yesterday about it.
It was.
I can't imagine how many you have.
Well, you responded to one of them all right off the bat here. I want to get if there's a backstory. I assume there must be. Just for the fans, for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. So Nathan Gerby, he went on Twitter and asked, which former Hurricane and current Blue Jacket teammate is your favorite? And then he added, specifically someone who was on the smaller side, ... I assume he's referring to himself, but you responded and said, Zach Dalpe for sure. I wouldn't say he's small, massive upper body, in fact. So can you just tell me why you felt the need to respond right away and the inside joke?
Well, I mean, he was obviously going for something. He wanted me to pump his tires on Twitter. And so I had to dig deep and, you know, try and put a kibosh on that.
Yeah.
We had a good laugh about that today. He's like, don't you ever embarrass me on Twitter again like that. We're joking around, but it was, it was pretty funny. We had a good laugh about it.
David Gagne on Facebook asks, what challenges, we touched on the first one, what challenges did you face when you transitioned from the BCHL to college to the NHL? But he does ask a good question. How did you adapt? They're both good questions, but how did you adapt, and what lessons would you impart to your younger self? So this is kind of, I guess, the advice. Having gone through that path, what lessons would you tell kind of a younger Riley Nash?
I think one of them is to be, the earlier on you can be realistic with yourself, I think the far better off, you know, what you're good at, what's your weaknesses. You know, at a young age, you feel like inside, if you admit to not being great at something, it's kind of like, it's kind of like a weakness for you. And I view that as just an opportunity to kind of round out your game. You don't really need other people to tell you, you know, you kind of know on the ice where you feel uncomfortable, where you feel like you're lacking in your skills. And so I think having a real clear, realistic view of what your strengths, weaknesses are, where you're at, you know, what you can use around you to help get you to the next level, I think is a huge thing. Because I think I did growing up, I thought, you know, I'm great. I don't really need to work on anything. I score goals. This is just awesome. But then one day you're going to get a rude awakening when if you know your weaknesses are going to be highlighted, and that might be something that derails you, and you can't get back on the path to making it to the next level. So I think the earlier on, the better you can have that realistic, you know, outlook at your whole game and just kind of who you are, and recognizing your weaknesses and being able to work on those. I think that's definitely a big big plus. I also think just having fun. To get to this level, I've spent 25 years working on it, and so if you lose that passion, that enjoyment of it, then every minute you spend on the ice in the weight room is just going to be painful. And I'm quite honestly, what's the point in doing it if you're not enjoying it? You can get caught in that rat race in a lot of jobs, a lot of places where you just kind of carry on without having some true enjoyment, and it's going to take a lot of passion and hard work to get here. So I think that would be number 2, is just really enjoy going out there, enjoy shooting pucks, enjoy skating, have fun with it. Don't put too much pressure on yourself.
Yeah, great advice. Next question comes from Calvin on Facebook. Do you still keep in contact with any Silverback teammates from that season in 2006-2007?
Oh, it's been a while. Yeah, I had a guy from Kamloops that we played together, but he lives in New Jersey now, so I haven't spoken to him in a while. I kind of keep tabs via Facebook. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see the odd guy in I saw like Ronnie Smith was on that team. I saw him like a couple of years ago in a random city, and so we just kind of cross paths every once in a while.
Next question, or final question, from Landon on Instagram. He asks, and I want to know this too, what is it like to be coached by John Tortorella?
You know what? That's ever since I've signed with Columbus, and every time I go back home or see people in the hockey world, that's the number one question I'm asked. And that would be the number one question I'd ask as well. You know what? He's been great. He's been great with me. He's been patient with me when I haven't played well, and he's really upfront. He's really honest. I think that in the pro game, you can kind of get lost in the BS, and where coaches kind of tell you one thing, but then they still won't play you in certain situations, and so you work on it to try and get there, and they still won't. So he's really upfront about, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, this is where you're at. And for me, as a younger self, I probably would not have appreciated that, but now kind of being through it all and realizing, like, having that realistic viewpoint and outlook, it doesn't hurt my feelings anymore. I kind of know what I am and who I am. So he's just very much upfront, in your face. Sometimes you don't want to hear it, and it doesn't matter, it's coming anyway. So he really doesn't let anything fester. It's just, let's cut to the chase. Let's figure this out right now. Let's figure it out, put it behind us, and then everybody's better off for it. So it's definitely been unique. We've had some pretty funny experiences in the locker room and meetings, but it's definitely given me a lot to think about, just in how coaches kind of handle players and what they can do to, which sometimes probably isn't what they want to hear, but in the long run will end up helping them. So yeah, he's a fiery character, and I know he hates the media. So yeah, it's funny because he'll be asked by the media guy to do a little interview with a bunch of people, and you can just see him steaming already before he even gets there. So and we laugh about it. He laughs about it, and it's just, his relationship to the media is not the best. He really likes the people as people, but he hates, I think, the media side of it. So
yeah. I can understand. That I'm worried we're going to run out of time here, so I think that's it. But this has been great, reminiscing back in your time as a Silverback. Some great advice. Thank you so much, Riley, for joining us on Catching Up with the Backs.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.